Welcome to the 5th unit in the Aromatherapy for Home Use course. Today we're going to cover geranium oil. We're going to go through some of the safety data attached and the contraindications to some of the essential oils, so things to watch out for when you're using essential oils. And we're also going to have a look in depth at using the oils in a vaporizer or burner. So I hope you enjoy this one as much as the others. So one of the ways of making you as safe as I can using essential oils at home is to make sure that you know the sort of general contraindications or safety data attached to different individual oils and some of the conditions just to watch out for as you're using the oils. So, for instance, clary sage, which is an oil we're going to cover in this 10, is an oil that, because it has a very euphoric effect, you wouldn't want to use clary sage and then go out drinking alcohol. It can just make you feel a little bit too euphoric. Also, if you suffer from epilepsy, there are a few oils that you have to be aware not to use with epilepsy. One of them out of this 10 is rosemary. The other one is sweet fennel and sweet thyme. So they are 3 oils to just be aware of not using if you suffer from epilepsy. If you have high blood pressure, then you do need to be careful with rosemary. Rosemary and sweet thyme are contraindicated with high blood pressure. They wouldn't cause too much of a problem if you did use them, but it's advisable not to. If you're taking homeopathic remedies, there are quite a few oils that can interfere with the action of your homeopathy, and peppermint and eucalyptus, which are in this top 10, would be 2 of them. Also black pepper. So there's just a few of them that can interfere with the action of homeopathic remedies. And also we have to be careful with grapefruit. Grapefruit is contraindicated with some medications. They're not going to cause you any harm in as much as they're not going to interact with the medication and cause some symptom, but they do tend to make the medication inactive and not as effective as it normally would do. So that's why you're advised, if you're on cancer medication or a statin for your cholesterol, or on some high blood pressure medication like atenolol, it's advised that you don't have any grapefruit. Continuing with the general contraindications and safety data of essential oils, we also have to think about phototoxicity. This is where if you have an oil on your skin and you go out into the sun, the oil can attract the sun more rapidly onto your skin, and not in a good way. This can cause burning, and it's one of the reasons why bergamot oil was taken off the market when it was part of the Bergasol sun lotion. It can have an effect if you have it on the skin in the sun. So these tend to be the citrus oils, and patchouli are phototoxic. You have to be aware of that. We also need to have a thought about pregnancy, and some of the oils really that you can't use and absorb through the skin for pregnancy. There's quite a few, so I'm just going to name some that we're going to be covering. So it's basil, chamomile, clary sage, rosemary. The rule of thumb really is to just stick to your citrus oils if you're going to bath, or lavender, which is very safe as well. Sensitive skin. A lot of the oils can irritate the skin if you're very sensitive. However, I have sensitive skin, and the only oils that I've found I've ever had to be careful of when I get out of the bath is peppermint and fennel, and that was generally my own fault. I'd put too many drops in the bath and just had to get out and wash it off. So it was just a sort of tingling sensation. So if you know you have sensitive skin, just be aware that some of the citrus oils and peppermint can be a little bit too stimulating on a sensitive skin. So geranium, I mean, we all have seen them in tubs and window boxes. It's a very popular and much loved plant in the garden in England, especially. It's also known as rose geranium. There are so many different varieties. Geranium is not really the true name for this plant. It's pelargonium. And anybody who likes their garden centres, when you go to look for a geranium at the garden centre, it's the pelargoniums you're buying. There are more than 700 varieties of pelargonium. They are very, very popular, very common flowers, easy to grow, as I said, and have a long lifespan if you pick off the flowers. So they're said to be under the power of Venus, which means that they're very good, particularly for women's problems. Now, that doesn't mean that a man can't use it if they like the smell of it, but they do tend to be very good for the menopause and PMT and hormone balancing, which women tend to suffer from more than men, I think. Historically, they are regarded as a healing agent for wounds and fractures, and the oil is extracted from the flowers and the leaves. So as I said, there's over 700 varieties of pelargonium, and the one we use in aromatherapy is Pelargonium graveolens. It's a very common type of geranium, but it's a very specific type, and there are lots of different varieties. So Pelargonium graveolens is the one that makes the best essential oil. What's the nature of geranium oil then? Pelargonium graveolens. So it's refreshing and relaxing. It's hormonally balancing, as we've already said. It soothes an anxious mind, so good nerve tonic, very good for stress, anxiety, tension, depression, particularly where you're feeling lonely and suffering from insomnia. Physically, it's very good for fluid retention and obesity. It helps get all the fluid and lymphatic system moving. Very good for the circulatory system and heavy periods. So if you're suffering from heavy periods, this is an excellent oil for you. It's good for all skin types, but particularly dull, lifeless skin. So geranium, I would say, was a good nerve tonic, very good for emotional issues, particularly where there's hormonal imbalance. It's very good for the circulatory system. So if you have poor circulation, chilblains, a varicose ulcer even, I've treated a varicose ulcer with geranium and a combination of other oils within my aromatherapy. And it's a very good oil for balancing the reproductive system as well as the skin. So not an oil you'd use for aches and pains and arthritis and things like that. It's not a good oil really for the respiratory system. We've had quite a few of those already. Geranium is better when it comes to the circulatory system, the reproductive system, the skin. The benefits of Pelargonium graveolens. Physiologically, it's good for poor circulation, wounds, ulcers, bruises, burns. It's an alternative to lavender if you have a burn. As I said before, fluid retention, obesity, it's very stimulating to the lymphatic system. So it's not going to help you lose weight, but it will stimulate and speed up the lymphatic system. Hormonal imbalancing, it's very good for the endocrine system and the balance between the endocrine and the reproductive system. So balancing hormones, PMT, irregular periods. Terrific oil for the skin. So all skin types, but it's quite a good tonic. It cleanses the skin, tones the skin, good for inflammation. It's an anti-inflammatory. So inflamed skin and oily skin. Psychologically, anxiety, depression, it's very good for neuralgia. It's indicated where you have a change of life, mood swings, when you feel rigid in your thinking or your attachments to things. Geranium is very good for helping you to sort of move on and be a little bit more flexible. The therapeutic properties of geranium. It's very good for the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, all types of skin, the reproductive system. It's very uplifting and a nerve tonic. So it's really good for anxious, tense, stressed people who maybe suffering from depression. For a cardiovascular system, it's very what they call hemostatic. So it tends to balance the blood and stop heavy bleeding. So it's very good for poor circulation and wounds. Varicose ulcers, I remember helping to heal years ago in my aromatherapy with using geranium, as well as other oils. All types of skin, it's anti-inflammatory, it's antiseptic, very good for oily, congested skins in particular. And I've also used it for shingles, eczema, burns, dermatitis. And I had a relative who was suffering from shingles, and I mixed some geranium and chamomile oil into calamine lotion, and it was very, very effective and reduced the amount of time they suffered from the pain. It reduced straight away, and then the condition cleared up really quickly. So reproductive system, it's very hormone balancing and very balancing to the endocrine system. So PMT, menopause, heavy periods. It's very good for those four systems in particular. Not so good for aches and pains or the respiratory system, but definitely for the nerves, for the cardiovascular, for the reproductive, and for the skin. Geranium is a really good, safe all-rounder. However, from an amateur's point of view, I would just be a little wary using it in pregnancy, especially in the first 3 months of pregnancy. I think that its interaction with the reproductive endocrine system would just make me a little bit cautious about that. So I'm going to give you pregnancy as an area to be cautious with the safety of geranium oil. One of my favourite combinations is geranium and sweet orange together. I think any of these really what I call floral oils work really well with the citrus oils as well. Because geranium's got the same two main chemical constituent as rose, it blends really well with rose. So I would put geranium with lavender, any of the citrus oils, as I said before, and rose, even basil. I think sometimes basil and chamomile, basil and geranium can be a lovely combination. Ideas for using geranium and some recipes for using in the bath, burners, making up a facial ointment or oil. A refreshing, relaxing bath is a lovely combination of lemon and geranium together. Nervous exhaustion, either for a bath or a burner, you could mix basil, geranium, and lavender. For a facial oil for normal skin, you could use geranium, lavender, and maybe just a little drop of jasmine if you've got it, although it's quite expensive. Fluid retention bath could be geranium, sweet orange, rosemary. A relaxing vaporizer or a bath could be bergamot, geranium, and ylang ylang together. For the menopause, you could use a vaporizer or a bath. Clary sage is excellent for normalizing PMT and emotional upheaval. Geranium and rose together with clary sage is a really nice blend. Using essential oils in a vaporizer or burner is a lovely way to use the oils. And it's also a lovely way to have an effect on other people, especially if you've got a husband who comes home irritable and angry from work, and you don't really know what to do about it. You can subtly burn some oils in the room, hopefully to change their mood. So anger and irritability, wonderful reasons for using the oils. You can use rose for grief, and grief doesn't have to be because somebody's passed away. You can suffer from grief because you've come to the end of your university course, or you've come to the end of a job that you enjoyed. You can have grief because a child leaves home to go to university. There's lots of reasons why you could have grief. And depression can creep up on all of us, and we suddenly find ourselves with a sort of lack of, a sort of apathy and a lack of concentration and a feeling of hopelessness. So I'm a great believer in using the oils, particularly in a vaporizer, for cheering, for antidepressant reasons. Also, if you're not sleeping very well, to burn the oil when you're suffering from insomnia, you can burn the oil in the evening to get ready for bed so that you're more relaxed. It's very good for reducing stress and anxiety and headaches. Peppermint, rosemary, basil, they're all really good oils for preventing headaches. The burners come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And the main thing that you're looking for is a bowl on the top that you fill with water. So obviously you don't want one that's too small or you'll be forever filling it up. You also don't want anything too close to the candle because then it'll burn dry very quickly. So I would say that this pottery vaporizer on the right hand side picture is probably the minimum amount of space that you want between your water and the candle. You're then going to fill the bowl with water. You're going to apply 2 to 6 drops of essential oil. Now, you've got to be sensible about this. If you're in a tiny room, little bedroom, or a little bed sit, then you're only going to use 2 drops. That's all you need. When it comes to psychological problems, you need less oil rather than more. So 1 drop, 2 drops often works a lot better than knocking yourself over the head with 6 drops in a small environment. So it depends on the size of the room. If it's a really large room, then you can use up to 6 drops. And again, you can mix 2 or 3 oils together. They like company. But if you've only got 1, then that's fine as well. Then you're going to light your tea light, the tea light candle underneath. You can't use bigger candles because they do tend to be too hot and then they burn out your vaporizer very quickly. And there's nothing worse than a dry vaporizer smell. So obviously you're going to keep them safe. You're going to make sure that you blow them out before you go to bed, and you're not going to have them anywhere near children. Some of the ways I've used a vaporizer or burner, or you might have a diffuser that does the same thing, is I might use the vaporizer to set the scene. So maybe a romantic evening, maybe on Valentine's, you could use ylang ylang and lavender. Ylang ylang is known as the poor man's jasmine, or if you have jasmine, you could use a drop of jasmine with lavender. For anger and irritability, I would use either ylang ylang on its own or with bergamot oil. For grief, I would use a vaporizer or even a tissue to take to a funeral. A Christmas aroma is lovely. Orange and cinnamon together really gives you that nice feeling when you get up. in the morning and gives you a nice sort of Christmassy feeling. A studying blend would be basil, lemon and rosemary. You can use one of each, or you can just choose one and use one on its own. Headaches, peppermint and lavender are ideal for helping with headaches. You can use oil for boredom and apathy. So if you've got a teenager who's home during the summer holidays and they really are being quite a pain, you could use lemongrass or jasmine or rosemary or all three, just subtly burning in the background, and see if you can alleviate that boredom and apathetic feeling. Loneliness is a horrible thing to be suffering from, and the oils in particular are very good for giving you comfort at times when you feel lonely. Benzoin is very vanilla in its aroma, and it is a bit like having a comfort blanket. It's a wonderful smell if you like the smell of it. And geranium together, I mean, they are a blend made in heaven. They're very, very comforting and warming in their aroma. Nervous exhaustion, physical exhaustion, lavender and clary sage, very good for having clarity in what's going on and clearing your mind. We also know basil is very good for clearing your mind as well. Stimulating wake-up blend. Not always do we want to be put to sleep by the oils we burn. Sometimes we could do with something a bit stimulating to wake us up, and grapefruit and rosemary is a very refreshing start to the day. We're going through quite a few methods of use for using the essential oils, and we've been through today how to use a vaporizer or a burner. We've covered neat application, which is only for lavender and tea tree. We've had some very good recipes for inhalation, a bath and a lotion. So we've had 5 methods of use up to now, and hopefully you're trying them. And do give me feedback if you find a nice recipe or if you're having a problem in any way and you need to have a question answered. This was our 5th oil in the series of aromatherapy for home use. And I hope you really enjoyed learning about geranium oil. The next oil I'm going to talk to you about is going to be eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is a wonderful oil and has so many different properties, although a little bit more medicinal herby in its aroma.